Hi, this is Dr. Cesar Oliver with another episode of the Way to College podcast. And I'm always excited anytime I get to sit down and visit with someone, with one of our guests. I never know where the story's going to go, particularly because so many of my guests, as of late, are folks that are new to my network, folks that I meet across social media, or folks that reach out to me, interested in sharing their story or joining me on the podcast. And today my guest is another new person to the network. So I came across her page over social media and was fascinated by the work. And I was very interested in learning about the story about her business. Now I'll go into it because I want to allow her to tell us all about it. But Jeannie, thank you for joining us. You know, as with all of my guests, I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself to our listeners out there.
Thanks for having me. So, my name is Jeannie. I am from Edinburgh, Texas, and I am the owner and founder of the Bookie Bus. We are the Valley's first mobile bookstore.
The book e-bus. Okay. So I know there's a story behind that, right? Jeannie, if you had to identify a starting point for your own, before we get to the professional journey, but your own educational journey, where would that starting point be for you?
So for me, I guess in my extended career, or I guess my extended educational background, I'm from the Valley. I was born and raised here, and so I went through high school, Donna High School. I graduated in 2000. A long time ago, 2008, I guess. And then I stayed here in the Valley to continue my education. I went to the University of Texas Pan American back then. I graduated in 2011 with a bachelor's in business marketing, and I specialized in customer relations.
So, one, thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for that brief introduction, Jeannie. So Jeannie, when we think about that, our starting point, you talked about started here. Um, what would you say maybe were your earliest educational influences?
For me, I can't say that in high school I was very focused or determined on anything specific. I was one of those kids that kind of just I didn't really study. I didn't really focus on anything. I kind of just went with the flow. But in college, I really buckled down and decided I wanted to be, a professional student, I would say. I wanted to focus. I wanted to really strive for greatness because my career at that point, I wanted to go into retail and really with a focus in fashion. That was back then, my driving force. And so in college, I decided to buckle down and really focus on that. And I did so, right? I graduated with almost a perfect 4.0. And and I did have some professors along the way, specifically my marketing professors, that really took the time to sit down with me and go over what my dreams were, my aspirations, and I found so much inspiration through them and really honed in and decided how I wanted to go about my career in the future, and what I wanted to specialize in and focus on. you know at that point I wanted to extend my reach. I wanted to leave the Valley. I wanted to go on and actually be a part of these huge retailers and in their buying sections of fashion and stuff, but ended up deciding staying in the Valley and really honing in and focusing and sharing my knowledge here where I have my family, my friends, and was born and raised.
The so these aspirations that you had, you said, and congratulations, because I think I always appreciate when my guests talk about the people in their lives that have kind of helped and supported them and nurtured those dreams. And so I'm glad you had those faculty members, those professors to help you out. Personally, on the family side, did you have a lot of support from your family?
I did. I'm very lucky. When I decided in high school that at that point, I thought I wanted to leave. I wanted to go off. Um, to San Francisco was my main focus. I really wanted to move to San Francisco. And so my dad, not having tons of money or anything like that, I was just going to apply. If I got accepted, I was going to leave. I hadn't even visited the school, anything. It was in my mind. I was leaving. I was moving to California. I was out of here. But he scrounged up the money and he took me to California to visit these schools and to see what it was like and kind of experience just the community, everything about it. And then, my grandparents as well, they took me to Houston to visit schools. Um, and another one of my grandparents, he was willing to provide the funds, whatever was needed. So I did have a lot of support. None of my family members, my mom or my dad, had gone to college. They went to college, but neither had graduated college. And so they didn't have a lot of experience or advice for me in that section. So I didn't have a lot to go on. I didn't know that I had to apply for housing. I really didn't know anything. And in high school, like I said, my guidance counselors weren't really there or pushing or available. So I didn't know what to do. And I ended up staying here because it was the easy route. It was the
Yeah.
only thing that kind of like, I didn't have to worry about housing. Financial aid was readily provided. And so it just happened that way. And I'm not mad at it. I think, I was very lucky to have great professors. I learned a lot and I loved my experience at UTPA.
Jeannie, thank you for talking about that because I think you're right in that there's a lot of information out there. And even today, for kids, for young people that are applying to college, there are a lot of it's not just about applying, but it's also about housing. It's about deposits and all kinds of things that are required. And so, not having I think some of that informed support, I think can be really critical. But at the same time, I think it sounds like you made the most of your time and your experience at UTPA. Um, there are so Jeannie, in full disclosure, I'll also help kids with college applications. Just because I think like you, my parents went to college, neither one of them finished. There were, in hindsight, a lot of things that I think I would have done differently had I been better informed. And so I do my best to help others, provide information and help with that decision making process. But I always encourage students and remind them, right, wherever you go, make the most of your opportunity there. What advice would you give somebody who maybe aspired to go away, right? And I also teach part-time at the university, so I always get students that are like, "Well, I wanted to leave," right? I'd say in every class, like half of the class says that. What advice would you give somebody who aspired to leave, but for whatever reason couldn't? And how do you encourage them to make the most of their time here or wherever they're at?
Yeah. So at UTBR, there were so many resources, even while I was there. Um, I guess I feel like you just have to listen and be open to those resources, make sure to take full advantage of them. I know I I can't recall the exact department that it was, but there was a department that would help you apply for jobs as you were nearing graduation. And I took full advantage of that. I asked for every single one that was in my field of business administration. And if it wasn't my time to leave, right after high school, I had grown so much and learned so much that I had decided I wanted to try again and leave after college. And so they were able to hone down different positions and jobs for me that were out of the state. And I was able to interview for a job in Boston, and they flew me out there and they paid for my hotel and the whole, shebang, which was an amazing experience just in itself. I didn't end up getting that job, but just having the opportunity to go and apply for it, I learned so much. Um, and so that was really fun and eye-opening. Also in the business administration department, they really encouraged us to intern, which was a great experience. I did intern locally, but going back, I maybe would have tried to intern, maybe in Texas, but maybe North Texas somewhere where I could still travel a little bit. But I know that the opportunities are there, and everybody was so helpful to try and get us there.
Yeah.
So I think just small steps while you're in school, uh, if you want to leave per se, can help you just see what it's like and see if that actually is the right choice for you.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you, Jamie. Um, let's talk about, you graduated from UTPA and then you still had those aspirations, right? You still kind of wanted to leave, but you chose to stay. What was that process like? Because I think for a lot of young people, and I've had a number of my guests talk about they, and not that they feel incredibly prepared for college, right? But that there is like a focus. There's this emphasis, whether it's in high school or, as they make that transition, the university kind of tries to guide you and help you as best they can. But a lot of my guests have talked about how as they were leaving, they weren't ready for sort of that shock. Like sort of that transition was maybe even more difficult than actually getting into college. What was that transition like for you, that post-college to career transition?
I wish I would have taken more advantage of um, that department I'm talking about where they had all these applications and everything ready to go for you, and you kind of just they sent you on every interview that they could find. I wish I would have given more thought into jobs that were outside of my, I was really focused on marketing. I wish that I would have tried different sectors of the business world rather than just honing in on marketing, because I've seen so many friends go off and see so many different opportunities in something that they didn't specialize in, but still found
Mm,
themselves like really successful and having a great time, and these new like computer science or like engineering worlds. And there are opportunities within business administration, marketing in these different sectors. You just don't see it right away. I was so focused on retail, on fashion, that I didn't give opportunities to other things. Um, so I think that was a missed opportunity for me. But leaving college, luckily, I did have a job. I can't even say lined up. My grandfather owned an insurance agency, which I now own. um, so I was able to go and work for him while I still applied for jobs
yeah.
kind of everywhere. And that was over 10 years ago. So I don't think it was as easy as now. You can, kind of go on the internet and find a job pretty quickly. And so it was a little harder back then. Uh, so I can't say I wasn't prepared, because I
Yeah.
do think that the school did prepare me and they did have avenues for me to pursue. I was just really focused on one area, and I would have liked now, 10, 15 years later, I should have broadened my horizons and kind of looked in different avenues. But I did end up finding a job and locally at Macy's as a sales supervisor that had a path to lead me towards a higher career within this retail giant, I would say. um, it was going well, and it did work out for me while I was there. It was a very promising job, and they did promise to have me climb this ladder of this career giant, right? But unfortunately, my grandfather he fell ill, and I was the only one who could take over his business, which had been around for 50 years at that point. And so I chose family, and that's how I am where I am today.
You and I and thank you for sharing that because I think if you're from the valley and you've spent any time in the valley, right? I think you understand how important family is.
Yeah.
And I share with my students, I went away. I left. I was able to leave for school, but I tell them I left, and after I graduated, I came back and I said I live next door to my parents. So, if my parents don't hear from me for 48 hours, they're like, "What's wrong? Where are you? Are you sick? Right? Do you need something?" And so I understand, and I've had countless students who Um, for whatever reason, maybe they're the oldest, and so transitioning into a role like similar to the one that you did, where you went in and took over for your grandfather's business. I think that is probably more common than we think it is down, it's particularly down here. Um, so here you are, you're working at Macy's, and then unfortunately your grandfather falls ill, and so you take over his business, and yet today you have this mobile bookstore. How did you get there? Like,
Yeah.
because it sounds like, I mean, I get it, it's retail, yes, but I also get you were doing sort of department store retail, you're doing insurance, and then we find ourselves opening a mobile bookstore. So tell us about that story.
Yeah. So, insurance was never in the cards for me ever. Like I said, after I graduated, I came and I worked for my grandfather because I needed a job. But
Yeah,
in his mind, he was constantly introducing me to customers and saying, "Oh, she's going to take over one day. She's going to take over one day." And I'm like, "No, I am not going to do that." I had dreams, I had aspirations. And so I didn't think that was going to happen for me. But like you said, emotions kind of take over. This is the man that raised me. Me and my
yeah,
mom did live with him for a very long time. So I couldn't say no to him when the time came. But in the back of my mind, in the back of my heart, I have always been a person that I want to provide for myself. I don't want to rely on somebody else to, give me a paycheck every week, or, I want to make my own goals and dreams a reality. And that has been since I was much younger. Um, so there was always a nagging in my head, I want to do something else for me, for me, for me. I got married, I had two kids. Um, and it was still there, something, I wanted to pursue something for myself. It took a little bit of time. At this point had been in insurance for about 10 years, but I was never happy, ever. It was, I was, to be honest, severely depressed, and very anxious. And it's something that paid the bills, but that's all it did. It didn't make me happy. Um, so it finally came to a point where I could pursue a business and another business, something for me. And after talking it over with my husband, reading has always been a huge passion of mine since I was a very little girl. I started reading at 3 years old. I've always loved to read. And so we, talked about or thought about having or opening a bookstore. Book Talk was huge. Book Talk over the past, few years has been really big. Um, and in the valley, we span so many hundreds of miles, and there was at the time maybe like 4 to 5 bookstores. So not a huge availability for readers, and there is a huge market here for of readers. And so we thought about opening a bookstore. We were looking around, and the commercial space was just extremely high in rent for
yeah,
the amount of square footage. It just wasn't worth it for what we wanted. We also really wanted, an older building. We wanted to renovate and have a big space where we could, you know, have a lot of people, also a cafe, lounging area. And we couldn't find the right space for that. Um, Me and my husband are huge fans of tiny homes. And the RV, the renovations of school buses and whatever it may be. We can sit down and watch that all weekend. We love that. And so he really wanted to renovate a bus. I my husband's a teacher, so he is not a construction worker. He is not good with manual labor. We hire somebody to cut the grass and to fix things in the house. That is not our forte. So um, I was surprised, but I thought, let's give it a try. I live near an auction site, and I pass by every day on my way to work. And one day I saw about 4 metro buses, and I told my husband about it. He's also not a mechanic, but our neighbor's pretty good with cars. So he asked him to go take a look at a bus for us, or those 4 buses that were up for auction. They found two. They thought maybe we could figure out what to do with them. What they weren't turning on, but he said it might just be the battery, might.
Oh my gosh.
And so my husband went one Saturday, the day of the auction, had never been to an auction before, had no idea what he was doing. We said our budget is $4,000. You cannot go over $4,000. And he won the bus. He won a bus, and he went over $4,000, but only by a couple hundred. And so it turns out it did just need a new battery. We got it home. I am a very type A person. I had strict deadlines. We got it in August. I said it's gonna be ready by December 1st, and it was ready by December 22nd. So we have a cousin who is very great manual labor. He worked construction before, and him and my husband renovated the entire bus by themselves, and we met people along the way. Still up to this day we're meeting people that help us out with the bus, but luckily it was a life-changing event, and we're so excited to have it now.
Jeannie, that is a great story. Um, you know, I meet people all the time that have ideas for things that they want to do, businesses that they want to start, and yet for so many of them, I think making the leap is scary. And you know, I get it. It's tough. Oftentimes it sounds like fear plays a major factor, right? What if I fail? What if it, just doesn't do what I hope it does? Where did you get the courage to decide I need to do this and I'm going to do this?
I I don't know. I don't, just somewhere deep within me, lots of prayer. I have a my mom is my amazing like faith foundation.
Yeah,
And so I just everything I'm a firm believer that things happen for a reason. And I feel like literally the stars aligned to make this bookie bus happen for me. It was my time, and I just figured I didn't do anything on loan or on credit in the beginning. Everything I paid for, I had a budget and I stayed within that budget. And it was a lot of money. So if it did fail, that was gone. But there
yeah,
was no going back. I didn't have to owe anybody anything. It was just my money. And if it was gone, it was gone. So I just made it happen. I knew my customer. So I guess I didn't mention this, but I had started Bookie in 2021, and I was just selling my used books. And it was just kind of a little side hustle just to make me happy and just to do something that I loved. And so I was selling books and jewelry and kind of making something called the bestie set, which was a bracelet that was inspired by the cover of your favorite book. And, that was that. Um, so this whole time I had grown a very small following. I had 700 followers, and some of them had to become very good friends. And so I knew that there was an audience for,
yeah.
the bookie bus. And so I wasn't scared of not having any customers. I was just scared of my bus not working every week and not getting on the road and not making it to where I needed to be. So that was the fear for me, was that the bus wouldn't turn on, which it
Yeah.
has done many times, not turned on, and it still does to this day. But other than that, I have an amazing community of book lovers in the RGV. So I wasn't scared of the business failing, just the bus failing.
Yeah. And so it sounds like, you said you don't know where it came from, but it does sound like, I mean, I don't know. I think I would be a little confident because like you said, you had 700, still 700 to 700 people. If I had 700 consistent customers, like I think that'd be phenomenal, right? So 700, you've got this following, you've kind of established yourself, right, through your side hustle, the bookie side hustle. Um, so I think, I mean, it sounds like, and of course, given your marketing background, your business background, I'm sure you also kind of did your homework, it sounds like, to get it all
Yes.
set up and going. So tell me, how does it work then? Now you've got because you own this your grandfather's insurance business, yes?
Yes.
And that still operates.
Yes.
All right. And then you've got the bookie bus. And so tell me about how does the bus work? Is it on the weekends? Is it special events? What is it? Give me all of the details.
So luckily I am the boss of my insurance agency, but it is still only me and one employee. So I do a lot of the work. I am here Monday through Friday all day, and I pretty much work whenever I need to work, which could be all
Yeah.
the time. But I have a pretty dedicated schedule. I know exactly, what I need to do and when I need to be there. But a lot of my job is remote, so I can work here at home in the bus wherever I am. The bookie bus is primarily on weekends. If need be, or if a really great event or market occurs during the week, then I will schedule that and I can take off from my insurance job. Um, I have found after a year of being in business with the bookie bus that I tend to book markets or specific events because the higher the traffic, the more worth it is, or revenue wise, to be out. We've tried to just park at coffee shops for the day, see how that goes, or other businesses. We find that doesn't it's just not profitable, or as profitable as just other high traffic events. So we choose to stick to just scheduling markets or bookish events. Um, and that works best for us. We were hoping this year to maybe hire an employee and have our bus parked somewhere throughout the week. But that we're still trying to decide how that will work and if that will work, because we do find people, asking, "Where are you today? Are you parked today?" And unfortunately, we have to be closed, Monday through Friday.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay. So and I think it sounds like unlike a brick and mortar store where you're kind of I mean, you're fixed to a location and you have good days, bad days, but there are days where you might, depending on the location, you might not have great traffic. But it sounds like because of the bus, I mean, well, that's one of the added benefits, right? Is you can go and book all of these events and these markets where you're going to get consistent foot traffic. So, wow, that's amazing. That's awesome. I love this. I love this. Um, how do you decide what to carry? Because you've got limited space, right?
Mhm.
So how do you determine, right? What am I carrying in the bookie bus?
Yeah, so it's really hard to determine. I guess just starting out, we fortunately are readers in our family. Myself, my husband, my cousins, my aunts, my friends. So when we started Bookie, it was kind of, do we carry all genres or do we
Hmm.
stick to one genre? At that point, romantasy books were extremely popular, and my customer is the girly girl that shops, TikTok. She reads book talk. She is my customer. So do I just hone in and focus only on her and have this, romance bookstore, or do I carry all genres? So again, I'm married to a reader. My kids are readers. I I decided that just to be business smart, I was going to carry all genres, because the majority of people coming in probably aren't readers. I'm going to have my, loyal customers, but if I want to reach a wider span of customers, I need to carry everything. So I curate my books selection based on what I like, what my husband likes, what my kids likes, what's my friends likes. I'm in this community. I'm in multiple book clubs. I am, surrounded by books 24/7. So I base my selection off of these things as well as the top sellers at the moment or new releases. But I am just constantly surrounded by books, listening to see what is popular. I I had no idea how to use TikTok when I started. I didn't even have a TikTok a
Yeah.
year ago. I had to get TikTok and constantly just be seeing how are people decorating their Kindles? How are they carrying their books? What crafts are they doing? Because I wanted my space to feel like a book fair, an adult book fair for my customer. And so I don't just carry books. I also have merch. I have the accessories to decorate your Kindle. And the things for the non-readers as well. I have, punny plushes and things like that. So you can come into the Bookie Bus and literally every single person can find something for themselves or somebody else.
That's
Um,
awesome.
so I really have to do my research. I'm dedicated to my business, and that's why you can, most likely find something if you come inside.
Wow. Um, oh my gosh. You mentioned like a book fair, and man, oh my God, book fairs were the best. I mean, I mean, we,
Definitely.
yeah, I loved the Scholastic Book Fairs in school, and it wasn't just the books, but there was like bookmarkers. It was all sorts of things and so, I'm eager to, and we'll get to where maybe some upcoming events where you're going to be at, because I'm eager to go and check out the bus, because I love that feeling. Um, all right, so let's see. Um, Maybe some questions that you're either maybe some of our listeners, yes, might have. One question that I have is, do you have a favorite author, and who is your favorite author?
That is so hard. That
Okay,
is
who's the author at the moment for you?
at the
Somebody
moment.
that, yeah, at the moment. Somebody.
Okay. Well, that's also okay. Well, at the moment, I'm gonna say Alice Feeney. She
Mhm.
makes these murder mystery thrillers that are out of this world. And I'm gonna say she's my favorite author at the moment because every book I read by her is just phenomenal. The plot twists are everything. But my favorite books, I would say, are the Fourth Wing series. The Fourth Wing series, because they are romantasy, they are adventure, and they are romance, and they are women powered. But I have not read any of Rebecca Yarros, who is the author of that series, any of her contemporary romance. So I cannot say she's my favorite author, but it is my favorite series. But Alice Feeney, yeah, she's a great author. I started reading her maybe, I don't know, 8 years ago or so. But since then, I have loved everything that has come my way from her. A popular Netflix series, His and Hers, just released, and she wrote
Oh
the
yeah.
book that inspired or was that show was based upon, which I read last year, and I absolutely loved it. And I love hearing people say they love the show, and I'm like, yes, I know, it's so good. And the book was even better. That favorite saying, the book was better. But yeah, great author.
Are there any maybe most requested authors from your readers or your customers?
Definitely. Frida McFadden is just all the rage right now. She's also a mystery thriller author. She wrote The Housemaid, which is now a major motion picture. Everybody that, both the book and the movie were phenomenal. Um, I I would say she is probably my most sought after author at the moment. My customer loves romance, but she loves all romance. It's not, I guess Colleen Hoover was very popular for a while. She kind of took a downward spiral, but I hope she's coming back up. She's a great author.
The Another question that I have is, it sounds like, because you said in so many words earlier in the interview about, when you took over your grandfather's insurance business, you said you were depressed, right? This wasn't exactly in the cards for you, or in your plans. It wasn't what you thought you would be doing. And yet, you've you've kept the business open, but you're also able to kind of take advantage of your passion, right? It sounds like you said, you and your husband, your family, avid readers, and to take something that you really care about and you're passionate about and turn it into a business. What advice would you have for somebody who maybe has a passion, but they don't know how to turn it into a business? They don't know how to maybe support themselves on their passion. What advice would you have for them?
So I think most important is really to do your research, because you can really, really love something, but it might not be the best business idea. And you don't want to turn your passion into something that you hate. So I think that research is very important, and maybe even a mentor that's in the business, somebody that you know. I find this a lot. A lot of people will ask for my advice, and I would say at least, up to 5 people a week will message me asking for advice. And it's really hard, but sometimes you have to turn away these people, just because I put in so many hours and hours and hours of hard work, and labor into this. I literally, my business plan is my life at this point. And I did so much for that, and to just give it away for free to somebody, I
Yeah.
think you have to be not afraid to ask for like a consultation. Maybe pay $50 for an hour or whatever it may be, but and you think I'm getting nothing out of this, but you are getting, like I said, mentorship, or somebody that has experience in the field, to kind of guide you along the way. So don't be afraid to pay money for, a conversation or for consulting. Somebody that is doing what you want to do, and maybe you take little bits and pieces to make it, your own. If you do decide that this business path or pursuing this passion, through a business is for you, make it niche, like find
Mhm.
something that is not like everybody else. If it's books, like I said, maybe it's a romance bookstore, or just like a mystery only bookstore, or something that people can go to and it's something they've never seen before. Because it's so hard to go do the same thing, or a lot of people are like, well, I can just get that on Amazon, or I can just go to Barnes and Noble, but it's the experience. People will pay for the experience. So if you can just hone in your skill to find something so specific that people will want to see or pay for, I think that's so important. So research, mentorship, and definitely finding like a niche within your business.
Jeannie, thank you for that because you know, I think social media has made it way too easy for us to look at something and say, "Oh, that looks easy. I can do that." Right?
Yeah.
And we rarely get to see sort of the behind the scenes or even sort of all of the steps, the labor that it takes to get from point A to point B or from point A to point Z or whatever. So I appreciate you talking about that, because I think we glamorize sort of the end result,
Mhm.
and don't spend a lot of time talking about sort of the like the research, and then the work that goes into and the planning into creating anything worthwhile. So I appreciate you talking about that. I also appreciate you talking about, you know, encouraging our listeners and viewers out there not to be afraid to spend money on a consultation, right? These folks and you know yourself and others like you, right? Professionals out there that have spent a lot of time building something and sort of taking their punches, right? The ups and downs, they've experienced it. And so, that time is valuable. Your time is valuable. So I appreciate that, you sharing that. Jeannie, tell us about where might we find the book e-bus in the coming month or so.
Yeah, so the next time we'll be out February 7th. We'll be in Weslaco at the Weslaco Library is having a book festival. And so we will be out there. So excited. We've been out there before for one of their book clubs. We love to go head out to the Mid Valley. So we'll be February 7th in Weslaco at their public library. And then on February 14th, Valentine's Day, we will be at Love Letter Coffee in McAllen. We are celebrating their 1 year anniversary. And so we will have all types of Valentine's goodies. It's like the perfect opportunity. The bookie bus is the perfect date night. So you can catch us in McAllen at Love Letter Coffee from 4 to 8 p.m. that day.
All right. I love it. I love it. And so I'll be sure, this will be on the post, but then what I'll do is I'll find some information about those events and make sure that our listeners and viewers have access to that. Jeannie, thank you for your time today. Before I let you go, any final piece of advice that you'd like to share with our listeners out there?
I would I think that what you're doing is so special. I think it is so important for students in general to have the opportunity to see that life is not just in this box, right? In this cookie cutter box. There are opportunities in every direction that they look. It takes time to be open to those ideas, to look at the whole picture and find something that really resonates with them. Don't rush through school. Enjoy every last minute of it. Take your summers off, intern, and really see the world before you go out into the career force. It's um, and just really experience life. I think it's so important. Something I wish I would have done a little bit more of. But don't give up. Follow your dreams and just do what makes you happy.
I love that. I love that. Jeannie, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your story. Thank you for all of the wonderful advice. I'm excited about what the future holds for you and for the Bookie Bus, and I'm looking forward to meeting you at one of the events.
Yes, you too. Thank you so much.
All right. This concludes another episode of the Way to College podcast. Thank you to my guests. Thank you to our listeners and viewers out there. Please remember to subscribe, rate, follow, share, all of that good stuff. And we'll see you again soon. Bye bye for now.